We got this tweet from Mario Knopfel. He says, breaking, CNN on Trump's exoneration. Quote, it is regardless devastating to the FBI, and to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump. Jake Tapper. He says, is CNN becoming less biased? Will other mainstream media follow suit? Let me play this clip of Jake Tapper for you.
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped, and it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI. And to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump.
To a degree.
I don't want to say it.
They're still so scared. They're still so scared of liberals. They can't just say Trump did not collude with Russia. He says, to a degree, it proves he didn't collude with Russia. No, it literally proves he didn't collude with Russia.
They can't let their dream die. They want this to be true so badly.
Exactly. It does not exonerate Trump to a degree. Trump was exonerated about all of this long ago. What it does to a degree is indict you and everyone else in the media who is parroting this nonsense.
And the mainstream media language around this is so funny to me. AP put out this article about it and said the findings aren't flattering for the FBI. Like it's not looking good. We don't want to say anything, but it's not great. And they say that the investigation was done without adequate bias, and they routinely ignored or rationalized evidence that undercut the premise. So the whole time, they were aware that this was not worth it, and they were like, but we're gonna keep going.
Literally what happened was they said Trump has a P-tape, and we said, care to elaborate further? And they said, no.
Do you guys remember the Huffington Post story about some video of Trump doing something at some time?
Yes, I saw that.
Let me see if I can pull that up.
That was killing me. But no, that's literally what happened, right? And they're never going to admit they were wrong. As I said, it's just one scam after another. Move on. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many times they're proven wrong. Does not matter how many times.
Here's the story from 2018. The hunt for every Trump reporter's white whale, the elevator tape. It says, there it was, some 1,500 words into a story published in the Daily Beast. The infamous Donald Trump elevator tape. Not the tape itself, but the first reference, the bombshell tape of Trump in an elevator. What it is, the Wall Street Journal, the AP, and others had chased a video that may not even exist. A certain contingent of journalists who'd spent months searching for something worth publishing. All that really mattered was the formal unveiling of the tape rumor to the public. It was basically nothing. Mm-hmm. A story about literally nothing. And they all chased after it. The famous quote was the tweet where it was like, somewhere, something exists. What it is, we don't know. What it's about, not sure. But Trump was there. We believe it.
Trump took the elevator. He's not taking the stairs. It's not healthy. This is a real scandal. They were desperate to find anything. And look, we know how this works. Well, it was very difficult to attack Trump on the basis of his policies because they tend to be very
I got
popular.
the tweet. Huffington Post tweeted, a tape might exist of Trump doing something in an elevator, though exactly where that somewhere is and what that something might be, no one in media can say. That's because no one in media seems to have seen the tape or is even confident it exists.
What?
What?
What does that mean?
They were writing articles about this. Imagine somebody walks into the newsroom and they're like, I got huge news. What is it?
I just want
Trump may have been in an elevator at some point with a camera doing something. I don't know what he did, when he did it, or why it was filmed. And they're like, whoa, can we find that tape? Yes.
I just want this to have been someone on his campaign who was like, I know one liberal journalist. I'm going to start this rumor and just see where it goes. And they read these tweets and they're like, I started that. But they can't tell anyone because somewhere there's a video of Donald Trump.
Well,
they're children. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing that a news outlet would publish that. Yeah, it happened somewhere. This is literally when you were in third grade and didn't read the book, and then you got called in front of the class to do your book report. You're like, yeah, something happened when somewhere they were like, sit down.
I got big news, ladies and gentlemen. A video may exist of Seamus Coughlin doing something.
No.
Now, what he was doing, I don't know.
In an elevator?
Where it happened, I'm not so sure. But a video exists of Seamus doing something somewhere. In fact, quite literally, what you're watching right now is a video of Seamus doing something somewhere.
That exists somewhere.
It's not bad. It's just literally Seamus talking about politics. But
plausible deniability.
But imagine this. Imagine this. You could literally play the media was so insane. I could claim there is a shocking video of Seamus Coughlin doing something somewhere. And then everyone's like, whoa, I wonder what it could be. And they imagine Seamus like juggling bowling pins or skydiving. Who knows? When in reality, I'm referring to Timcast IRL.
My biggest scandals were juggling bowling pins and
So, who knows?
We didn't say it was a scandal. We just said you're doing something.
Exactly. And then everyone turns it into a scandal by imagining the craziest thing.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
really is bizarre. As I guess I'm technically a journalist, and it pains me to say that because
Oof, yeah,
I
that's
reject
a rough
it.
one.
I know. Whenever
You're
I'm
gonna admit
meeting new
that?
people and I'm introducing myself, like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm a journalist. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna like smear you." But it really is bizarre to me, right? Like running with a story like that when there's really nothing to report. And I think what we're gonna see start to kind of unfold, which obviously we all know here, but obviously the Hunter Biden hard drive story in terms of the collusion with big tech and the FBI, the CIA, that letter, I think that really proves that there is sort of a merger, really I'd call it an axis of evil between these assets of the deep state and tech platforms. But I think the third component to that really is the mainstream media. And I think we've always known they've laundered talking points on behalf of the federal government. But I think this case, again, yes, it's vindication. Yes, we know Trump didn't collude with Russia. But this is like clear, incontrovertible evidence that I don't think we typically get to see it so plain front and center, at least, you know, us mere American people, us mere mortals, us non-elites. So I think we're going to start to see, just like that Hunter Biden story has sort of started to unfurl and you get good tidbits every now and then. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out about how the media has really just taken, whether it's FBI, CIA, you name it, their talking points and just repeated them mindlessly.
I got good news though. Take a look at this.
Based.
CNN's ratings are now below Newsmax.
Amazing.
Newsmax has surpassed CNN. Look at this. 8 p.m., 9 p.m.,
Everyone
10 p.m.
at
slot.
Newsmax is like, yes, we knew we could do it. We're beating CNN.
I mean, to be fair, CNN's been collapsing. But look, Newsmax is considered more conservative, right? They get smeared and attacked by the corporate press, and now they're displacing them. CNN tried to play dirty games, and now they will cease to exist.
But have you considered that somewhere someone might have done something and CNN may possibly have some of that footage?
Also,
Whoa.
they're sorry.
Yeah. They're
Actually,
also sorry.
I'm sorry. I can confirm.
Sorry.
There
And it's
is
Russian
there is a
disinformation.
video of Anderson Cooper doing something somewhere. What that thing is, I'm not sure, and where it is, I don't know. But the video does exist, and if we can find it, oh boy.
Oh, that'll be really bad.
Yeah.
That'll be really bad.
Let's
for
write
him.
27 articles about it for the next 3 years.
I
Every day.
The white whale.
I just
a
wanna
video
say-
that no one knows anything. Like, do you know how many videos of Trump in an elevator there are? Probably 17,000.
Yeah, really.
Because all of these different casino elevators have cameras. Most big, high security, like high rises and penthouses have cameras. Every time Trump got in an elevator, there's a video of him in an elevator doing something.
I just want to know how many journalists spent hours watching like leaked or like footage they finagled away from someone. It's Trump just like standing in the elevator. They're like, any second now he's going to do something crazy.
Like there's no commitment to truth. There's no commitment to reality or honesty. Look, I'm a cartoonist. I make jokes and I do political commentary. I'm not a journalist. Not anything of the sort. Given my state in life as someone who makes jokes, I could never imagine grabbing a story like that and repeating that to people. Because you got to be responsible with your platform.
I think it speaks to the two-sided nature of journalism today, right? Like they believe there is a reality that they live in, and they are here to disprove your reality. They don't believe we all live in a common shared reality. They believe that if they can create enough evidence of their own belief system, you have to admit that their worldview is right and you have to conform to it. I think that's the strange thing about so much of essentially content creation that gets passed off as journalism today. It's about arguing that the things you believe are wrong because my worldview is necessitated on the fact that these things I know to be true, that Trump is evil, that he colluded with Russia, and that if we vote for him, the country's falling apart. And in reality, even if you don't like everything Trump does, he is not this terrible person that should send you into hysterics.
Well, yeah, I mean, none of these journalists are journalists. Like 98% of the people who call themselves journalists are political commentators or they're bloggers or something like that. They write opinion pieces or they give you your perspective about something on television. Literally,
While claiming they're real journalists and you're not.
They're real journalists and you're not. And this is the thing. I am saying this, and I actually am willing to stand by this. There is a large percentage of the people who call themselves journalists who, minus like running a business and producing animation, do kind of the same thing I do, which is read articles, learn about the issues, do a bit of research, and then comment on them. They don't actually go investigate issues on the ground. They don't do interviews with people. They don't try to find the truth. And like, granted, I do try to find the truth, so that's one difference. But they will just read things online on like their news feed, or maybe they have someone who looks into articles for them, and they'll start commenting on it, but they're not like investigating the way you want a journalist to. They're just reading things so they can give an opinion about it.
Well, I think they cherry pick facts so that they can serve their own reality. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. They will say, well, we think there's a video of Trump, so therefore he's a suspicious character. So therefore you should trust us when we say he did all of these things wrong. I think they are completely biased to, or they're completely blind to their own bias because it's so deeply embedded in their worldview.
Do you think that, like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to Google this right now. I want to see like what the bare minimum is for referring to yourself as a journalist.
There's nothing.
Like, what do you? There's nothing. So I could just say I'm a journalist because I did go to the March for Life for Timcast and interview people. I guess I'm a journalist. I mean, I interviewed people about why they were at the March for Life. So I guess I'm a journalist. I'm going to change my Twitter bias and I'm going to add journalist to it right now.
I think there used to be a standard, right? Like a journalist is different than a reporter, which is different than a writer, that's just different than a columnist. But now it's a blanket term for anyone who pushes disinformation or publishes something that resembles news adjacent, we might call it.
I'm adding journalist to my bio. And in fact, I'm adding journalist first and foremost. Oh, I don't have enough words left. All right, I'm just going to put journalist in my bio. There, boom, it's done.
Yeah.
I'm literally a journalist now. Where's my blue check mark?
I don't know. I think you have to create one. I think you can buy one.
The blue check mark is something you just buy.
I know. Now you just buy it. I should have done some journalism on that.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
Is Serge the only non-journalist here right now? That's so embarrassing.
I'm currently doing journalism right now,
That's so mind you.
I'm always doing journalism. Just by being alive, I do. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's the hard thing. We have moved. One of the benefits of the digital age is how quickly we can get new information out there and the new formats that we get to discuss news and have commentary. I mean, this podcast exists essentially like 4 different opinion writers talking at the same time, giving your opinion, as opposed to reading 4 different opinion columns written around the same time about an issue. And that's more fun. On the other hand, we have, I think, sort of grade the classifications of news media because anyone can be a journalist and also no one truly has any journalistic ethics or obligations. I mean, I think people do. I don't want to be too hard on all reporters. There are some great journalists who do fantastic work. But like, I don't think you should just be like, I'm out here with my cell phone recording the street, therefore I'm a journalist, unless you are putting some effort in, you're researching, you're trying to find the truth, you're talking to people whose opinion you don't like. I think that's what bothers me the most. So many people go into this sphere just to talk to people who they like themselves and who produce talking points similar to the ones they would produce if they were the one being interviewed.
I feel like you can really cross-apply that critique to virtually every industry in America, in the sense of this whole refrain of, trust the experts, right? The expert journalists at the New York Times and the CNNs and the Washington Posts of the world. They're actually not our intellectual betters and superiors. And I think the House of Cards, right, this ability to enforce narratives like the Russia collusion hoax, like rests on this sort of worshiping this idea that, because you work for the New York Times and you have journalists in your bio and you have a blue check mark, we must believe what you say because you're from the federal government and you're telling us how to mitigate a pandemic. We must listen to you and what you're saying. And I think it's sort of, they just want the American people, again, who are so dumb because they see an article on Facebook, they're just going to start supporting some candidate. But I really think they just want us to blindly put our faith in every aspect of our life, right, over our bodies, what we believe, what we think, what we eat, you name it, into our, intellectual superiors, into this elite ruling class. And I think, frankly, that was what COVID proved, that this elite ruling class that is so smart. And Joe Biden, who, that class of people used to mock, they'd always say, Donald Trump made a fool of America on the world stage. And I always like this concept of the world stage, like they care so much what their, globalist brethren think of them and what America looks like. But then you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, even if I'm going to run with that paradigm, Joe Biden has made us look like a complete idiot and just
Kidding?
dismal failure on the world stage.
I just want to point out, as you all were talking, I was doing journalism, and
Oh my gosh, you found the footage!
I found the footage. This is a still image. Donald Trump in the elevator. Look how shocked everyone is.
Oh my God.
They're shocked of
Hard-hitting
Trump.
journalism.
They're so surprised at his behavior as Trump is yelling about something. It's so shocking, this footage, that I can't even describe to you what actually happened in that elevator.
That is
Trust me,
horrifying.
I've seen it.
That is legitimately
It's real. Tim's a journalist.
One of my favorites.
This is an AI generated image of Donald Trump in an elevator. I just typed it into Midjourney.
Don't give away the secrets, Tim.
AI generated journalism
AI
is what it
generated
was.
journalism.
One of my favorite things, you're mentioning a lot of the things they were saying about Trump, when they had an anonymous source reporting that Trump said something completely insane on Veterans Day, like, I frankly hate all veterans. It was the most absurd nonsense in the world. Like, okay, he didn't say this, and it was from an anonymous source. I couldn't help but laugh because, an anonymous source only works if you're a trustworthy person, right? If there's any reason to trust you. I have seen the stories that you guys tell when you have a named source. So no, I don't trust your anonymous sources. And frankly, I think you probably made it up yourself.
Well, and theoretically, if you had professional standards, you'd call the Trump White House or campaign, wherever we were in the timeline, and say, hey, do you care to comment on this? We're going to run with this story. You should have a chance to respond. That's supposed to be ethical, but they probably won't. And even if they do, they'll say, the Trump campaign categorically denied this while they shook in their boots because they're so scared of our amazing anonymous source who we can't tell you anything about. It's real. Trust us. I think that it was important to acknowledge that this does happen in all walks of life. That's a really good point. I think there are so many institutions that people point to when they want to use authority to back up their arguments. I mean, we see this a lot. I'm loath to bring it up because I know we talk about it a lot, but with the transgender ideology movement, people will point to the American Association of Pediatrics and say, well, they say there are certain things you are supposed to do. They'll point to all kinds of medical establishments. And I think we have to look back and say, why do we trust these institutions? Some of them may do good work. I don't know, but you should look into the institutions, who's on the board, how do they assemble themselves? Are they elected? You have to have a certain qualification. What is their mission statement? If you just throw out the name like this is the authority, then you are either A, trying to hide the bias, or B, you are not aware of the bias, which in and of itself is dangerous if you're putting yourself in a position where you're supposed to be giving out solid information.
Dude, Midjourney's crazy.
It is wild.
I got another one.
You're doing some real journalism tonight, huh?
I'm tweeting another one. Let me try and pull it up for you.
So Natalie, personally,
Here
as
you
a
go.
journalist,
Here you
I've
go.
never used an anonymous source. Have you ever?
I'm trying to think if I've actually ever unironically used it or not. Most of my reporting, well, I guess either comes from the Hunter Biden hard drive or publicly available data that the mainstream media won't report on when it comes to Chinese Communist Party infiltration, because usually I'm reporting on how the mainstream media is compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. It's a very good niche market, I've found. But no, it is weird. It really is funny though. And like you guys are saying, like, people, I think for the most part, hate journalists. Like, I get that whenever I'm introducing myself to people and telling them what I do for work. I have never had a positive interaction with someone. Then when they find out that I'm technically, like, not really a journalist because it's Steve Bannon and he's great, then they're like, oh, you're normal. You're, like, not one of them. But people hate journalists. I didn't realize.
But my experience is, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but if you talk to someone who is, like, progressive or left and who is a journalist and they, like, proudly introduce themselves as a journalist, like they are the bearers of truth, I find this very fascinating. Like, it is definitely a cultural shift. Some people do not trust the media, and for good reason, but there are some people who wear it as a badge of honor, and that is also worrisome.
Yes, and of course, I feel like we have to give an honorable mention to the, like, fact checkers of the world and the Media Matters, the media watchdog types, because they're obviously in on the same grift. But no, they attack me all the time for working with Steve, saying that I'm not actually an investigative reporter. It's like, fine, then point to one of my stories that's not true.
Prove it.
Right? I've never been sued. I've never published or printed anything incorrect. Frankly, a lot of my investigations have led to people wiping their Twitter accounts, getting fired, getting removed from boards. So the evidence is there, right? There's obviously action occurring from my reporting. So it's just, I think, you brought up the transgender movement. A lot of this just, I think, has to also just do with, like, distorting words, right? Mm-hmm. Like, journalist doesn't mean what it used to mean because definitions they're not rooted in reality, because everyone can have different really versions of reality, and that's of course amplified by the fact that if you turn on CNN, they say, "Oh, to a degree." Well, what does that mean? You know, it's not even double speak. It's a whole different language.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.